How's it going, guys? Welcome back again for some more Tales from Timor. So I was sitting on the porch the other day, and the conversation is revolving around what is happening in Israel and Palestine. Because yeah, that conflict is global news. And I'm just sitting there keeping quiet. I do not have the language skills in Tetun to be able to adequately express my full opinions on this issue. But then one of my neighbors asked me on what the opinion of America is on the whole situation. To which I just simply respond that the American government supports Israel. Just a simple fact. And then one of my neighbors asks, if America were to get involved militarily in the conflict, would you go? To which I immediately responded that no, I would not go. And then another neighbor responded, oh, Mount Ben's scared. Now, I didn't have the time nor the patience to explain all that was wrong with what they just said. I mean, I don't possess the language skills in Tetun to entirely explain what the military-industrial complex is, nor do I really want to. Nor did I want to explain the fact that I don't believe in the glorification of war, and I don't believe that people who abstain from it are cowards. I just simply responded that I don't believe in violence. And it is very interesting that this conversation and these events have been happening at this time. Because over these past few weeks, I have been finishing up a game that hits upon the futility of violence. That game being Red Dead Redemption 2. Now, this video is not going to be a full analysis of the video game, because I don't have the time nor the internet speed to do any of that. However, I will be discussing one chapter of this video game, so consider this your spoiler warning. If you have not played Red Dead Redemption 2, I highly recommend that you do, so go play it, and then come back here. I will be waiting. Now, with that brief warning aside, now let's get into this. So this chapter of the game starts off with the protagonist, Arthur Morgan, and his gang being caught in the middle of a conflict between the Lakota Indians and the United States Army. This conflict is happening because the United States government wants the land that the Lakota people are on because it has oil, a motivation for violence as old as time itself. And the characters in this conflict are as follows. First up, we have the antagonist of this chapter, and that is Colonel Favors. So Colonel Favors is a disgraced army man. He has not had an illustrious career in the army. He is not a man with a very high reputation in the United States Army, and many of his peers often call him derisive nicknames. So this man is looking for anything in order to get a chance at restoring his reputation. So this man gets the grand idea to provoke the Lakota people into attacking him, so then that way he can retaliate and wipe the Lakota people off the map, and that way he'll be lauded as a hero in the United States government for solving the Lakota people problem. Cause yeah, the United States military just doesn't seem very right to attack unprovoked. And in order to provoke these people into attacking him, he does some atrocious things. He withholds vaccines so that way the Lakota people die of entirely preventable diseases. He destroys ancient religious sites to provoke an attack from the Lakota people. And he decides to accuse another man in the United States Army of treason just because this man got in his way. And that brings me to the next character, and that is Captain Monroe. And this man is very kind-hearted. He wants to help the Lakota people in any way he can. He's the one who helps to get the vaccines back when they are withheld. He petitions for the Lakota people on their behalf in order to keep the land that they're on. But most importantly, Captain Monroe is investigating Colonel Favors to make sure that there is no foul play involved, and is going to deliver his report back to the United States government. And Colonel Favors knows that this report isn't going to be good, so he decides to accuse Captain Monroe of treason and see him hanged. And Captain Monroe is such a good character that he decides not to shoot anybody even when the United States Army turns on him. And on the other side of the coin, we have this young Lakota man named Eagle Flies. And Eagle Flies is a very angry young man. He's seen his people be constantly berated and harassed and stomped into oblivion, and he really wants to do something about it. But the problem is that he is facing such overwhelming odds that he feels entirely helpless, and that causes him to be very angry. And something that is very true about a lot of angry young men is that they are very easy to be manipulated. Which brings me to the next character and the main antagonist of the whole game, Dutch van der Linde. Now, Dutch sees Eagle Flies' anger and sees it as an opportunity for him. See, Dutch wants to use Eagle Flies' anger and have him attack the United States military. And by attacking the United States military, this will cause such commotion that Dutch will be able to slip away. At least that's the reasoning that Dutch gives in the game. And by this point in the game, we've learned not to trust Dutch at his word. By this point in the story, we've learned that Dutch is the type of person to burn down a kingdom just so he can rule over the ashes. Dutch has too big of a target on his back to just slip away. And we see this all happening through the eyes of the protagonist, Arthur Morgan. And Arthur, in addition to being one of the greatest video game characters ever put to screen and an overall G, is become disillusioned with Dutch and his ideology and his vision. Arthur keeps seeing Dutch use violent means in order to obtain the life of freedom that he wants. And he's becoming disillusioned with it because they just seem to be digging themselves into a deeper and deeper hole. And also, Arthur knows that he isn't long for the world because he's suffering from tuberculosis, which was a death sentence back in 1899. And because Arthur knows that he isn't long for the world, he decides to help in any way that he can. So he helps Colonel Favors get back the stolen vaccines. He helps recover stolen religious artifacts for the Lakota people. And he tries to put a stop to the violence by brokering a treaty between the Lakota people and the United States Army. And he does all this at the behest of the Lakota chief, and quite possibly the most interesting character in the game, Rainsfall. Now, Rainsfall is just fascinating. As I've said before, he's the Lakota chief, and he is Eagle Flies' father. And throughout the chapter, we see Dutch van der Linde and Rainsfall act as sort of a devil and an angel on Eagle Flies' shoulders. Because Dutch van der Linde wants violence, but Rainsfall wants peace. Because Rainsfall has seen the destructive nature of violence. See, in the past, Rainsfall has signed 2 treaties only to have the United States Army go and break those treaties. And so Rainsfall decided to go to battle against the United States Army, only to lose both a wife and a son. And this demonstrates a great truth of violence to Rainsfall. You cannot enact violence without losing a part of yourself. And we see this enacted out all the time in real life. I mean, look at people like Mike Tyson. If you go and listen to his podcast, you'll know that Mike Tyson is suffering from a lot of issues because of his fighting. Or even take NFL players. I mean, those guys later down their careers end up suffering serious brain damage because of the violence that they inflict. And also, Rainsfall understands that the cycle of violence will always continue. I mean, this man lost a wife and a son, and the problem has not resolved itself. It has only fed the fire for more violence to grow. And this brings me to something very interesting about Rainsfall that I think was a really brilliant choice by the writers to do. The most common sentence uttered by Rainsfall is, "I don't know." Rainsfall is not sure of how to move forward in this situation. And he fully admits that he doesn't know if his way of peace is the right way or not. He admits that maybe it is more honorable to die in the glory of battle. But he's seen the price that violence has, and he's not willing to pay it anymore. And he doesn't want to see other people pay that price either. And the thing is that the people who preach the violence end up learning the futility of the price that is paid as well. For Colonel Favors, his violence ultimately cost him his life. And also the land that he was trying to get the Lakota Indians to move from had so little oil that it wasn't even worth drilling for. Eagle Flies ends up paying the ultimate price as well. Admittedly, he does go out a little bit more honorably. And Dutch van der Linde ends up escaping and surviving, But at the end of it, he loses everyone that he once held dear. He loses everything that he spent the whole game fighting for. And ironically, the fact that Rainsfall says, "I don't know so much," makes him one of the most rational characters in the game, because we, as the game players, don't know how to proceed with this situation either. Despite this fact that this game takes place in 1899, it still has a lot of lessons to teach us for these modern times. This game showed me that violence is circular. It is an Ouroboros constantly eating its tail only to find out that there is more to be eaten, and it is never satisfied. It showed me that oftentimes the people who say that they know what they should do in times of violence are often acting out of their own pure self-interest. It also showed me that being confused is not something to be ashamed of. In fact, it makes you rational. And finally, it showed me that there are no victors to violence. There are only victims. Ate logu, guys. I'll see you next week. Before you guys click out of the video, don't forget to like and subscribe right down there in the doobly-doo. Also still in the works on the new EP. Hopefully it'll be coming out here in the next month or so. So keep an eye out for that. Yeah, guys, I'll see you around.